Night settles slowly, like a soft curtain falling across the world. And in that quiet space between wakefulness and sleep, the mind becomes open in a way it rarely is during the noise of the day. This is the hour when thoughts stretch farther, when distant memories drift closer, and when the boundaries of what feels possible expand just a little. It's also the hour when, for countless people across the world, strange recollections begin to surface. Moments they've tucked away, moments that feel too unusual, too fragile, or too unbelievable to speak aloud. And so, they turn to the anonymous corners of the internet, especially places like Reddit, where strangers gather to whisper their most unsettling experiences into the void. These stories are raw and unfiltered. They come from ordinary people, students, parents, night shift workers, hikers, or someone simply staring out a window because sleep won't arrive. They don't claim to be experts. They don't ask to be believed. They simply want to share something that won't leave them alone. Something they saw, something they felt, something they still can't explain. And in the soft quiet of bedtime listening, their words take on an intimate, almost confessional tone, as if they're speaking directly to you in the dark. What makes these late-night stories so compelling is not only the mystery behind them, but the sincerity woven into each memory. You can almost sense the internal struggle, wanting to stay rational, wanting to forget, yet unable to shake the feeling that something stood at the edge of the bed, or hovered silently above the backyard, or passed overhead with an otherworldly precision that defied anything mechanical or earthly. These encounters don't arrive with dramatic music or flashing lights. They arrive in stillness, sometimes in a half-sleeping state, sometimes in complete clarity, and they imprint themselves so deeply that years later, people recount them with unnerving detail. Psychologists often say that nighttime is the mind's most honest hour. When external noise fades, suppressed memories tend to rise, and emotional truths feel clearer. This is one reason so many people remember strange encounters while lying in the dark. It's also the moment when narration becomes soothing, when a calm voice can guide the listener away from busy thoughts and into a deeper, slower rhythm. At the same time, the mysterious nature of these stories keeps the mind engaged just enough to hold onto the voice, but gently, never jarringly. It's a balance between relaxation and curiosity, a blend of safety and the unknown. Throughout history, humans have shared stories about lights in the sky, visitors in dreams, and beings who emerged from the darkness. Yet the modern digital age has given these encounters a new home. On Reddit, hidden behind usernames, people share what they never told their families or friends. The anonymity acts like a protective shield, allowing truths that feel too strange for the daylight world to finally breathe. Scroll through certain threads late at night and you'll find thousands of voices, each describing something slightly different, yet unmistakably connected by a familiar thread of awe and fear. As you listen to these stories, you might notice how often they echo one another. The quiet hum that seems to come from nowhere, the sensation of being watched, the floating lights that move with intention rather than randomness, the sudden feeling of heaviness or paralysis or presence. Even people from opposite sides of the world describe details so similar it's difficult not to wonder whether they witnessed fragments of the same phenomenon. This is one of the reasons researchers take anonymous testimony seriously. Consistent patterns appearing across unrelated witnesses suggest something more than imagination might be at play. But tonight, there is no pressure to solve anything. No need to decide whether these stories are extraterrestrial encounters, dreams gone astray, or glimpses into a reality we barely understand. Tonight, these experiences are simply stories carried on a calm breath, stories meant to accompany you gently into sleep. They exist in a quiet space where the mind is free to wander without needing answers. And in that wandering, something soothing happens. The unknown becomes less threatening and more like a distant landscape, mysterious yet peaceful, stretching out beyond the horizon of your thoughts. So as your body settles deeper into comfort, allow the night to surround you softly. Let the mysteries stay just out of reach, like faint stars you can sense but not quite touch. These stories are doors into a realm between logic and wonder, a place where imagination and memory intertwine. And in this peaceful space, you can simply listen, unhurried, unafraid, as the night unfolds its secrets around you. Long before the words UFO or alien existed, humans looked up at the night sky and felt a presence they couldn't explain. Ancient civilizations carved strange beings into stone, tall figures with elongated heads, luminous halos, or circular objects hovering above them. While historians often interpret these symbols as mythology or artistic metaphor, others see something more, echoes of encounters recorded long before modern language could label them. Even in the earliest writings from Sumer, Egypt, and India, there are descriptions of glowing chariots, flying discs, or radiant visitors descending from the heavens. These stories, preserved over thousands of years, form the oldest layer of humanity's fascination with mysterious beings who seem to watch from the sky. As centuries passed, the interpretation of these sightings evolved, shaped by religion, culture, and the fears of the time. In the medieval period, people who saw lights moving silently through the sky often believed they were witnessing angels, omens, or other supernatural messengers. Chroniclers described fiery wheels above battlefields or luminous shapes drifting over villages at night. With no framework for extraterrestrial life, witnesses interpreted these encounters through the spiritual lens available to them. Interestingly, many of these accounts contain details that resemble modern UFO reports: sudden accelerations, impossible movements, and lights that seem to respond intelligently. Scholars who revisit these records argue that while the interpretations were different, the experiences themselves may not have changed as much as we think. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as technology advanced and humanity's imagination expanded, the phenomenon shifted again. People began reporting strange airships, large, metallic crafts, moving in ways no known aircraft could. At the time, aviation was in its infancy, so witnesses often assumed these objects were experimental machines created by secret inventors. Newspapers documented mass sightings across the United States, and some reports even described humanoid figures aboard these mysterious crafts. Looking back, researchers note that these descriptions often match the shape and behavior of modern UFO sightings more closely than early airplanes, raising questions about what people truly witnessed. The mid-20th century marked a turning point. After World War II, with rockets emerging and humanity stepping into the atomic age, public curiosity about life beyond Earth skyrocketed. Sightings increased dramatically, beginning a period now known as the modern UFO wave. The famous Roswell incident in 1947, whether misunderstood balloon debris or something else entirely, sparked widespread speculation. Meanwhile, military pilots reported encounters with flying discs that outmaneuvered every aircraft of the era. These sightings were documented not only in newspapers, but also in official government programs, including Project Blue Book, which attempted to categorize and explain thousands of reports. Yet even the government investigations left many cases unresolved. Declassified files reveal patterns: objects capable of silent hovering, sudden acceleration, and sharp-angle turns inconsistent with conventional flight physics. Witnesses across multiple continents described identical shapes: triangles, discs, and orbs, suggesting a phenomenon not restricted to a single culture or time period. Historians studying these patterns often note that the consistency of the sightings, even before global communication was fast or widespread, implies a deeper continuity than coincidence alone can explain. Throughout the decades, interpretations continued to shift. As science fiction entered mainstream culture, people began to understand these encounters through the lens of extraterrestrial visitation. Books, radio shows, and later television series encouraged the public to imagine life beyond Earth as not only possible but inevitable. This cultural shift allowed witnesses to describe their experiences more openly. Instead of fearing ridicule or accusations of superstition, people now had a vocabulary: aliens, UFOs, spacecraft, that felt modern and rational. This change didn't reduce the mystery. It simply reframed it. Modern researchers note that many of today's UFO accounts still share traits found in ancient and medieval records: bright spheres of light, silent movement, sudden appearances and disappearances, encounters that leave lingering impressions of fear, awe, or confusion. Even reports of tall, thin visitors or beings with large eyes reflect imagery seen in ancient carvings and folklore. Some anthropologists propose that these similarities arise from universal human psychology, while others argue that they point to a phenomenon interacting with humanity across millennia. By the time you reach contemporary Reddit threads, you're not just reading modern ghost stories. You're seeing the newest chapter in a historical continuum, one that stretches from the earliest civilizations to the present day. The tools of storytelling may have changed, but the experiences remain hauntingly consistent. As people share their strange encounters online, they unknowingly echo the voices of ancestors who once whispered similar fears and wonders under the same night sky. And in that continuity, the mystery deepens, inviting us to consider whether these stories are fragments of a single, ancient phenomenon that humanity has been trying to understand since the beginning of recorded history. Human memory is a strange and delicate thing, shaped as much by emotion as by the events themselves. When someone witnesses something extraordinary, something that defies explanation, the mind doesn't store it the way it stores ordinary moments. Instead, it becomes sharpened, almost engraved, because the brain recognizes the experience as unusual, potentially threatening, or deeply meaningful. Psychologists call these impressions flashbulb memories, vivid snapshots formed in moments of high emotion. Many people on Reddit describe their encounters from childhood or adolescence with astonishing clarity, not because the details are perfect, but because the emotional weight has never faded. The memory remains suspended in time, like a photograph lit from within. But memory is never simple. It is filtered, reconstructed, shaped by years of reflection, fear, and curiosity. Scientists who study anomalous experiences often point out that when the brain encounters something it cannot categorize, it searches for the closest match in its storehouse of associations. If nothing fits, if the shape, light, or presence feels alien, the experience becomes difficult to verbalize. Witnesses often explain that their memories feel both sharp and dreamlike, both undeniable and surreal. This paradox appears repeatedly across thousands of accounts, suggesting a kind of psychological signature unique to encounters with the unknown. Sleep plays a complex role in this process. Most encounters shared online occur at night or during transitional states, just before sleep or just after waking. These moments, when the brain drifts between consciousness and dreams, are rich with imagery and heightened perception. Researchers know that hypnagogic states can create vivid hallucinations, paralysis, and sensations of presence. Yet, witness after witness insists that what they experienced was not a dream, not paralysis, not imagination. They emphasize the clarity of their surroundings, the temperature of the room, the awareness of every sound. They remember the event with the grounded certainty of being fully awake. The debate between natural sleep phenomena and true encounters has fueled scientific discussions for decades. Those who study eyewitness psychology acknowledge the tension. They explain that while some experiences can indeed be traced to sleep-related conditions, many others do not fit the profile. Not all witnesses were lying down. Not all were falling asleep. Some were driving, walking outdoors, or standing at a window in full wakefulness. The consistency of these accounts, different people in different cultures recalling similar sensations, suggests to some researchers that sleep state explanations alone cannot cover the full range of reports. The phenomenon may overlap with sleep, but it is not confined to it. Another powerful factor is the emotional imprint these experiences leave behind. People rarely forget how something made them feel, even if the details blur over time. The overwhelming sensation of being watched, the sudden quiet that feels unnatural, the physical stillness that comes without warning. These emotional reactions embed themselves deeply. When Reddit users describe their encounters, the emotional tone often feels as vivid as the visual details. Fear sharpens the memory. Confusion preserves it. Awe leaves it glowing at the edges. Whether the event lasted seconds or minutes, the emotional echo can last a lifetime. Social psychologists have long noted that people are more likely to remember events they feel they cannot share. The isolation strengthens the memory instead of weakening it. When someone carries a strange experience in silence, afraid of being mocked or dismissed, the memory becomes private, replayed internally over and over. This repetition, even if unspoken, shapes how strongly the experience remains accessible years later. In this way, thousands of people on Reddit are not simply telling stories. They are releasing memories that have lived quietly inside them for decades. Sharing these accounts becomes an act of relief, an unburdening. At the same time, skepticism also plays an essential role in understanding eyewitness testimony. Scientists remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and human memory is imperfect. Yet the patterns found across so many accounts challenge the idea that all witnesses are mistaken. People from different backgrounds describe identical sounds, identical movements, identical entities. Even the psychological responses, paralysis, an overwhelming sense of presence, a sudden shift in the atmosphere, mirror one another with uncanny precision. If the experiences were purely imagined, the uniformity would be harder to explain. Ultimately, the nature of eyewitness memory places these encounters in a space between certainty and mystery. The details may be influenced by time, emotion, and personal interpretation, but the core experience remains stubbornly real to those who live it. These stories persist because they left marks on the people who witnessed them, marks that neither skepticism nor rationalization has been able to fully erase. And as these memories resurface in the quiet hours of the night, shared anonymously across a glowing screen, they take on a life of their own, forming a collective archive of experiences that feel too significant to forget and too strange to fully comprehend. The first three encounters open gently, almost like the soft rustle of leaves in a quiet forest, yet each carries an unmistakable weight of the unknown. The first story comes from a young woman living in a rural town, a place where the sky stretches wide and uninterrupted, revealing stars that feel almost too close. One evening, she stepped outside to collect laundry, noticing a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground. At first, she assumed it was an aircraft, but the sound lacked any recognizable pattern. Above her, a group of lights hovered silently, moving as though aware of her gaze. She described feeling a simultaneous pull of curiosity and unease, the kind that roots you to the spot. Moments later, the lights vanished abruptly, leaving the night silent once more. In recounting the event on Reddit, she compared it to accounts from pilots during the 1950s and 1960s who reported similar hovering objects over open terrain, suggesting a strange continuity between modern civilian sightings and historical records. The second story involves a man who had recently moved into an apartment on the outskirts of a city. One night, while preparing for bed, he noticed a strange figure outside his window. Its movements were deliberate, almost investigative, and it appeared to study the interior of his home with an intensity he could not explain. He initially froze, questioning whether it could be a trick of shadows or fatigue after a long day. But as he observed, the figure seemed to vanish and reappear with impossible speed, moving across rooftops in ways no human could manage. The Reddit post emphasized his disorientation, how seconds stretched like hours in that quiet confrontation. Historians of paranormal sightings note that urban sightings like this often share an element of observation, the feeling of being watched, which differentiates them from purely aerial phenomena. Researchers debate whether these experiences are external manifestations, psychological echoes, or perhaps a combination of both. Yet the emotional clarity reported by witnesses remains compelling. The third encounter is quieter, but equally unnerving. A hiker recounts a late-night trek through a dense forest, where the only light came from the moon and the occasional flash of fireflies. As he paused to rest, he noticed a soft luminescence moving between the trees. Unlike natural light, it had shape and intent, as if navigating through the forest with awareness of his presence. The sensation of being followed, or at least observed, grew, pressing against his senses without physical contact. He later described feeling a moment of suspended disbelief, unable to reconcile what his eyes saw with what his mind knew to be possible. Researchers in anomalous phenomena have long pointed out that wooded areas, like open skies, create conditions for encounters that feel intensely personal. The combination of isolation, limited visibility, and heightened sensory awareness seems to amplify both perception and fear, allowing the strange to intrude upon reality with remarkable subtlety. Across all three stories, common threads emerge. Each witness emphasizes the stillness of the environment before and after the encounter, suggesting that the absence of ordinary background noise heightens awareness. Each describes a presence or intelligence behind the phenomena, whether through movement, positioning, or timing. And each felt an emotional imprint so strong that it lingered long after the event itself, a quiet reminder that something unusual had occurred. While skeptics might argue for misidentification of conventional lights, reflections, or sleep-related phenomena, the consistency across reports from different locations and contexts makes such explanations less satisfying. The moments shared online create a tapestry of experience that is at once personal, relatable, and inexplicably mysterious. These stories also reveal the subtle ways in which ordinary settings become extraordinary. A backyard, a window, a forest trail. Each space is familiar, grounding the witness in everyday reality. And yet, in that familiarity, the extraordinary can intrude, magnifying its effect. The juxtaposition of the mundane and the strange heightens the sense of wonder and unease, drawing listeners into a narrative that feels both intimate and expansive. For someone listening at bedtime, these accounts are particularly compelling because they mirror the quiet, reflective state of the mind at that hour. You can almost feel the grass beneath bare feet, the hum in the air, the rustle of leaves, details that anchor the imagination while letting it drift toward the unknown. In sharing these first three encounters, there is no rush, no dramatic climax, only a steady unfolding of curiosity and observation. The stories act as invitations into a world that is both familiar and mysterious, encouraging the listener to slow their thoughts, to dwell in the sensation of being present with something unexplained. They establish a pattern that will continue in the next accounts. Ordinary people, extraordinary experiences, and a consistent sense of awe and subtle fear. As you listen, the mind begins to adjust to the rhythm of the unknown, creating the perfect bridge between everyday life and the deep mysteries that lie just beyond perception. The next three encounters deepen the sense of unease, moving from fleeting glimpses to experiences that leave witnesses questioning the very fabric of their reality. The fourth story comes from a young man who was camping in a remote area near a lake, far from any city lights. As he settled into his tent, a sudden silence fell over the surroundings. The usual sounds of nocturnal life, the chirping of insects, the distant calls of owls, ceased entirely. Then, a series of lights appeared over the treeline, moving in patterns that defied conventional flight. They shifted direction instantaneously, rotated in ways that no drone or aircraft could mimic, and hovered in perfect stillness before retreating as quietly as they had arrived. When he posted the account on Reddit, he described an almost hypnotic calm that mingled with a deep, instinctual fear. Experts studying aerial anomalies often note that witnesses in isolated natural settings report similar patterns: sudden silence, intelligent movement, and a lasting emotional imprint that feels heavier than the visual experience itself. The fifth encounter took place in a suburban neighborhood, in the middle of an ordinary evening. A woman was returning home from work when she noticed a bright, pulsating light hovering above her street. At first, she assumed it was a helicopter or a spotlight, but the light's motion was erratic and impossibly fast. Then she realized the light seemed to track her as she walked, adjusting its position to maintain a consistent distance. She froze, unsure whether to flee or watch. The experience left her with a lingering feeling of being observed, not just physically but mentally, as though her presence had been cataloged in some ineffable way. Scholars who analyze such encounters often point to the phenomenon of intelligent tracking, where witnesses describe objects or entities responding to their movement in a way that suggests awareness. These patterns have been documented in multiple historical sightings and continue to appear in modern accounts, lending a thread of consistency to reports across decades. The sixth story is subtler, but no less unsettling. A college student was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when a sudden chill passed over the room. She glanced toward the window and noticed a shadowy figure standing in the corner. Its form was indistinct, but the presence was undeniable. She felt a pressure in the air, a sense of being tethered to the moment, unable to move or speak. After what felt like several minutes, the figure vanished without sound or trace, leaving the room eerily still. She later recounted the event on Reddit, noting that she did not feel any physical harm, yet the memory of the presence lingered as a subtle, almost tangible weight in her mind. Sleep researchers and parapsychologists have long debated such encounters, examining how low-light conditions, hypnagogic states, and heightened emotional sensitivity can create experiences that feel simultaneously real and otherworldly. Across these three stories, certain themes begin to crystallize. One is the idea of directed awareness, a sensation that the witness is being observed or even studied by an entity with intelligence. Another is the manipulation of environmental cues, sudden silence, unusual light behavior, or subtle temperature shifts. The emotional impact of these events is profound. Even if the visual phenomena are brief, the psychological echo can persist for years. Witnesses report feeling watched, followed, or somehow mentally engaged, suggesting that these encounters are not merely accidental glimpses, but experiences that leave a lasting mark on perception and memory. These accounts also illustrate the wide range of settings in which such phenomena occur. From deep wilderness to quiet suburban streets to private bedrooms, the encounters are not limited to any particular environment. What unites them is the intimacy of the experience, the sense that the strange intrudes into personal space in a way that cannot easily be rationalized. This makes the stories particularly compelling for listeners, because they highlight the fragile boundary between the familiar and the unknown, the places we think we control and the moments when something entirely alien asserts itself without warning. The narrative pacing of these encounters is deliberate, designed to mirror the slow unfolding of perception in the real world. Each story begins with ordinary activity: walking home, camping, lying in bed. Gradually, something shifts: a silence, a light, a presence. The mind is drawn into careful observation, mirroring the way the witnesses themselves experienced each moment. For bedtime listening, this pacing is crucial. It encourages a calm, deliberate attention, allowing the listener to inhabit the space of the encounter without being startled. The effect is both relaxing and subtly unnerving, cultivating a gentle tension that deepens engagement without disrupting the meditative rhythm of the evening. By the end of these three stories, the listener begins to sense a pattern of interaction: entities or lights that appear with intention, environments that respond, and an emotional resonance that lingers long after the initial sighting. These encounters demonstrate that mystery is rarely abrupt or chaotic. It is often slow, deliberate, and profoundly intimate. And as you absorb these experiences, a sense of cautious wonder takes hold, preparing you for the next set of stories, where the boundary between ordinary life and the unknown will be tested even further. The final four encounters carry a weightier stillness, an intensity that lingers in the mind long after the initial description. The seventh story comes from a man who was walking home late at night in a quiet rural neighborhood. The streets were empty, the sky unusually clear, revealing a canvas of stars that felt both familiar and vast. Suddenly, a triangular formation of lights appeared overhead, moving silently with a precision that no conventional aircraft could achieve. As he watched, the lights seemed to shift in response to his movements, as if aware of his gaze. The shapes remained for several minutes, then vanished without a trace, leaving behind an almost tangible emptiness. In his Reddit post, he described not just awe, but a profound sense of connection, as though he had witnessed something meant to be seen, but impossible to fully understand. Investigators note that triangle-shaped UFOs appear frequently in both contemporary and historical accounts, often associated with reports of intense personal observation. The eighth encounter was more intimate, occurring within the confines of a suburban home. A woman, returning late from work, noticed a strange figure in her living room, partially obscured by shadows. At first, she thought it might be a reflection or trick of the light, but the figure moved with deliberate, intelligent gestures. She felt a sudden, unexplained pressure in the room, a sensation that seemed to wrap around her without physical contact. After a brief but terrifying pause, the entity disappeared, leaving the home in an unsettling quiet. Sleep researchers have studied cases like this, noting how the combination of low lighting, isolation, and heightened emotional sensitivity can produce experiences that feel intensely real. Yet in many reports, witnesses insist that the event transcends ordinary explanation, suggesting the presence of something beyond conventional perception. The ninth story unfolded in a remote hiking area late one night. A group of friends, resting near a small clearing, observed a series of glowing orbs hovering between the trees. Unlike the first orbs, these moved with purpose, approaching and retreating in ways that suggested awareness of the humans watching them. One of the friends described a sensation of time stretching, each second dragging like a minute as their senses sharpened to the movements around them. When they returned home, they found that only minutes had passed, despite their perception of much longer exposure. This phenomenon, often referred to as temporal distortion by parapsychologists, appears in numerous reports, lending an added layer of complexity to the experience of alien encounters. Such accounts suggest that the phenomenon interacts not only with the physical environment, but also with human perception, subtly bending the rules of time as we understand them. The 10th encounter, perhaps the most unsettling of all, occurred in a quiet suburb where a man noticed a bright light hovering just beyond his window. At first, he assumed it was a drone or spotlight, but as he approached, the light seemed to split into multiple forms, each moving with intelligence. He felt a wave of pressure, a mental intrusion that made thought itself difficult, as though the presence was not merely observing, but probing his awareness. After a tense few moments, the lights coalesced and shot upward at an impossible speed, leaving the street empty once more. He later shared the experience on Reddit, emphasizing the deep sense of awe and vulnerability it left behind. Accounts like this exemplify what researchers call high strangeness, where the experience includes both tangible phenomena and inexplicable psychological effects, blending the material and immaterial into a single, deeply affecting moment. Across these 4 accounts, patterns emerge that distinguish them from earlier stories. There's a stronger emphasis on entities or objects that demonstrate intentionality, tracking, responding, or interacting with the witnesses in ways that suggest consciousness. Many of these encounters occur at night in quiet, private settings, amplifying the sense of intimacy and vulnerability. Observers consistently report both visual and psychological effects, lights moving in impossible ways, sensations of pressure, and a subtle alteration in perception or time. These elements contribute to what investigators describe as high strangeness, a category reserved for encounters that defy both conventional explanation and ordinary psychological interpretation. What is particularly striking is the shared emotional imprint. Even when no physical interaction occurs, witnesses describe lingering effects, heightened awareness, residual fear, curiosity, and a sense of being changed by the encounter. This suggests that these experiences are not merely visual phenomena, but involve deep cognitive and emotional engagement. Some theorists argue that these interactions hint at a level of intelligence beyond our current understanding, a presence that observes or even communicates through subtle environmental cues. Others suggest they may be interdimensional in nature, appearing briefly in our reality before receding, leaving only memory and sensation behind. Listening to these final stories, the mind becomes immersed in a quiet tension, balancing awe and calm, wonder and uncertainty. The slow, deliberate narration mirrors the rhythm of the experiences themselves, allowing the listener to inhabit the space of observation without fear. Each account reinforces the notion that these encounters, while deeply mysterious, are part of a larger pattern, an ongoing interplay between the ordinary world and the extraordinary, a persistent whisper of something beyond human comprehension. And, as the night deepens, The listener is gently prepared for the shift toward broader reflection on how these experiences intersect with history, government reports, and the many theories that attempt to explain the unexplainable. As these personal experiences unfold, it becomes impossible to ignore the way governments and institutions have approached the subject of unexplained aerial phenomena. For decades, official agencies around the world have documented sightings, often without providing clear explanations. In the United States, Project Blue Book collected thousands of reports during the mid-20th century, ranging from simple lights in the sky to highly detailed accounts from trained military personnel. While many incidents were attributed to conventional causes, whether balloons, aircraft, or atmospheric anomalies, hundreds remained unexplained, leaving a lingering sense of mystery that has persisted into modern times. Researchers examining these files note a recurring pattern: objects demonstrating flight characteristics beyond known technology, often accompanied by credible eyewitness testimony, yet officially categorized as unidentified. The Pentagon's more recent disclosure of UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, encounters has reignited both public interest and scholarly investigation. Reports released in 2020 confirmed that pilots had observed objects capable of instantaneous acceleration and abrupt changes in direction, behaviors inconsistent with any known aircraft. These revelations underscore an important point. Even trained observers, using advanced technology, encounter phenomena that defy current understanding. Historians and sociologists alike note that government acknowledgement adds a layer of credibility, though it also raises questions about why so much remains classified or unexplained. The secrecy, whether intentional or procedural, fuels speculation and gives private witnesses a context for their own experiences, creating a subtle link between personal accounts and institutional observation. Media coverage has played a significant role in shaping public perception. Newspapers, television programs, and now online platforms like Reddit create cycles of attention that magnify interest during periods of high disclosure and wane when official communication is limited. Scholars studying the media's impact point out that reporting often emphasizes mystery and sensation, which can reinforce the perception that these events are not only real, but potentially threatening or significant. Yet for many witnesses, the media serves a more personal purpose, a way to share their experiences with an audience that might understand, even if only remotely. Unlike historical periods where sightings were interpreted through folklore or superstition, modern media provides a vocabulary and framework for describing encounters with precision and credibility. The relationship between government documentation, media coverage, and personal testimony is complex. On one hand, the existence of official files validates the experiences of ordinary witnesses. They are not alone in perceiving phenomena that defy explanation. On the other hand, the lack of definitive answers maintains a sense of uncertainty, encouraging both skepticism and wonder. Researchers highlight that unresolved reports create fertile ground for multiple interpretations, from advanced extraterrestrial technology to natural atmospheric phenomena or classified human projects. This ambiguity mirrors the experiences of Reddit users, whose accounts often sit at the boundary of explanation, described with care yet impossible to fully categorize. Interestingly, patterns emerge across both official and civilian reports. Many sightings involve hovering objects, sudden movements, or apparent intelligence guiding motion. Some reports even note physiological effects on witnesses, heightened awareness, altered perception, or an almost tactile sense of presence. Analysts examining the overlap between military, scientific, and civilian accounts argue that these shared characteristics suggest a phenomenon not confined to imagination or misidentification alone. When multiple credible observers report similar details, the cumulative weight of evidence points towards something persistent and real, even if its nature remains elusive. The quiet acceptance of ambiguity is an important theme in both government files and personal narratives. Officials often emphasize that unexplained does not mean hostile, and that lack of evidence for conventional causes does not imply extraterrestrial origin. Similarly, many Reddit contributors frame their experiences not as proof, but as personal events that challenge their understanding of reality. This approach fosters a measured tone. The extraordinary is presented with calm observation rather than fear, encouraging curiosity rather than panic. Listeners are invited to dwell in the liminal space between known and unknown, to explore the mystery without the urgency of resolution. Finally, these accounts reveal how public trust, secrecy, and disclosure intersect. The more governments release credible data about unexplained phenomena, the more ordinary witnesses feel validated. At the same time, the incomplete nature of these disclosures preserves the sense of wonder that has characterized human fascination with the unknown for centuries. In the quiet, reflective hours of bedtime, the listener can appreciate that these stories exist in a continuum. Personal experience meets official documentation, and both coexist in a space that is profoundly mysterious, deeply human, and gently compelling. It is here at this intersection that curiosity thrives, and the mind begins to consider the possibilities that lie beyond the ordinary world, preparing for contemplation of theories, interpretations, and the vast unknown yet to be explored. When faced with accounts of unexplained phenomena, the human mind naturally searches for patterns, explanations, and frameworks that can make sense of the unknown. Over decades, researchers and enthusiasts have proposed multiple interpretations, each attempting to reconcile personal testimony, historical records, and official documentation. One of the most widely discussed ideas is the extraterrestrial hypothesis, the notion that some of these encounters are caused by intelligent beings from other planets or star systems. Proponents point to the advanced capabilities described in sightings: instantaneous acceleration, precise hovering, and maneuvers that defy known aerodynamics. They argue that these characteristics, combined with the consistency of descriptions across cultures and decades, suggest entities capable of operating technologies far beyond human understanding. Astrophysicists add context, noting that with billions of potentially habitable planets in the galaxy, it is statistically plausible that life, and even intelligent life, exists elsewhere. Yet not every researcher agrees that extraterrestrial visitation is the only or most likely explanation. Some propose interdimensional theories, suggesting that certain encounters may involve entities or phenomena originating from realities that overlap our own. This concept, sometimes described as high strangeness, emphasizes experiences that blur the line between physical and psychological reality. In these cases, witnesses report not only seeing lights or figures, but sensing an awareness, encountering time distortions, or feeling profound emotional resonance. The interdimensional hypothesis accounts for the elusive, sometimes fleeting nature of encounters, why entities appear suddenly, interact briefly, and vanish without trace, while also explaining the unusual sensory and cognitive effects often described. Psychological explanations offer another perspective. The human brain is incredibly sensitive to patterns, especially under conditions of fatigue, stress, or sensory deprivation. Sleep paralysis, hypnagogic hallucinations, and temporal distortions can all produce experiences that feel vividly real yet arise from internal processes. Neuroscientists studying these phenomena emphasize that the brain's threat detection systems are particularly active during transitional states, such as waking or falling asleep, heightening the perception of presence and motion. Many Reddit witnesses recount episodes that occurred at night, often alone, where the line between wakefulness and sleep was blurred. While these explanations do not account for every case, they provide valuable insight into how the mind can generate experiences that feel external, intelligent, and deeply affecting. A more speculative interpretation considers advanced human technology. Some theorists suggest that a number of sightings could involve experimental aircraft or drones, possibly developed in secret by military or private organizations. This perspective is supported by historical instances where classified tests coincided with unexplained lights and craft sightings. Analysts examining radar and pilot reports note similarities between some contemporary UFO descriptions and known performance capabilities of top-secret aircraft programs. While this hypothesis accounts for certain mechanical features and movement patterns, it struggles to explain more intimate phenomena. The sudden appearance of entities, perceived telepathy, or high strangeness effects that seem to transcend physical explanation. Each of these theories, whether extraterrestrial, interdimensional, psychological, or technological, addresses part of the puzzle, but rarely the whole. Researchers studying anomalous phenomena often emphasize that the diversity of experiences suggests multiple overlapping explanations. Some encounters may indeed have a physical origin, while others exist primarily in the subjective perception of the witness. Yet what remains constant is the remarkable consistency in human experience. Reports of hovering lights, intelligent movement, emotional resonance, and the feeling of being observed. These shared traits, documented over centuries and across cultures, lend a sense of credibility that is difficult to dismiss entirely, regardless of interpretation. Importantly, none of these theories need conflict with the others. A single event could involve multiple layers, a tangible aerial phenomenon, a perceptual amplification by the human mind, and a profound psychological or emotional impact that leaves lasting memory. Scientists and parapsychologists alike caution against oversimplification, emphasizing the value of observing, documenting, and analyzing patterns without rushing to conclusion. This approach maintains both rigor and wonder, allowing the phenomena to be studied while preserving their inherent mystery. As a listener, it is worth noting the subtle balance that these interpretations provide. They do not demand belief in any single explanation, nor do they diminish the experience's significance. Instead, they offer frameworks that expand understanding, situating personal encounters within a broader tapestry of historical, scientific, and speculative thought. In the quiet moments of reflection, one can consider these theories with calm curiosity, allowing the mind to explore possibilities without fear. The unknown remains unknown, yet it is also approachable, layered with meaning, and gently inviting. And as these contemplations drift alongside the listener, they create a space where mystery and reason coexist, setting the stage for considering the cultural and psychological significance of encounters that continue to captivate and intrigue humanity. Even as individual encounters capture attention, the broader question emerges. Why do these stories hold such a powerful place in human imagination? Anthropologists and sociologists suggest that encounters with the unknown, particularly those involving beings or lights from the sky, resonate deeply because they touch on a universal human need to understand our place in the cosmos. From the earliest cave paintings to modern Reddit threads, people have documented experiences that challenge everyday understanding, blending fear, curiosity, and awe into a single emotional imprint. These stories offer a way to navigate the tension between the familiar and the unknown, providing a narrative structure through which we can process moments that otherwise feel ineffable. Cultural influence plays a significant role in shaping both the interpretation and the retelling of these experiences. Folklore, literature, and cinema all create frameworks that guide how people perceive the unusual. Medieval accounts of sky visitors were interpreted as angels or spirits, while modern media often encourages the idea of extraterrestrial beings, spacecraft, or interdimensional entities. Researchers note that this cultural lens affects not only how encounters are described, but also how they are remembered and internalized. The imagery and expectations provided by previous stories, films, and books often influence details in contemporary reports, demonstrating the interplay between collective imagination and individual experience. Yet even within these culturally informed narratives, the underlying sense of wonder and uncertainty remains strikingly consistent across time and geography. Online communities such as Reddit amplify this cultural continuity, allowing witnesses to find validation and connection in spaces where they might have otherwise felt isolated. Sharing an extraordinary experience, often years after it occurred, provides emotional relief and a sense of being understood. Contributors to these communities frequently describe the act of posting as cathartic, a way to release memories that have been privately burdensome or unsettling. Listeners of these stories, even when hearing them for the first time, experience the ripple effect of these shared emotions, finding themselves drawn into the subtle rhythms of suspense, curiosity, and reflection that define each encounter. This communal aspect of storytelling transforms what might have been an isolated memory into a shared human experience. The psychological appeal of such stories is closely tied to their narrative structure. Encounters often begin with ordinary, familiar circumstances: walking home, camping, or resting at night. Slowly, something shifts: an unexplained light, a shadowy presence, a sensation of being observed. The pacing of these experiences mirrors human attention and perception, making them immersive and relatable. Cognitive scientists suggest that the combination of familiarity and disruption heightens engagement, as the mind naturally tries to reconcile the extraordinary with the ordinary. For listeners, especially at bedtime, this creates a delicate balance between comfort and curiosity, drawing attention gently toward wonder rather than fear. These narratives also speak to fundamental questions about control and vulnerability. Encounters with the unknown occur in spaces where people typically feel safe: bedrooms, backyards, quiet streets. When an unexplained presence enters these spaces, it challenges the assumption that the world is fully knowable or controllable. Yet the stories are rarely aggressive. The phenomena often observe, hover, or disappear, leaving witnesses alive, unharmed, and forever changed. The tension between vulnerability and survival contributes to the emotional depth of the experience, making it both haunting and strangely reassuring. It suggests that while the unknown may be beyond comprehension, it is not necessarily malevolent. Historically, humans have always sought to find meaning in encounters that defy explanation, whether through religion, folklore, or philosophy. Modern UFO and alien narratives are part of this continuum, offering frameworks that address existential curiosity in a scientific or imaginative context. They allow individuals to explore questions about life, intelligence, and consciousness beyond Earth, all while grounding these reflections in the intimate, personal scale of human experience. The stories persist because they resonate with universal themes: isolation, awe, fear, and the drive to understand what lies beyond perception. Ultimately, these narratives occupy a unique space in human culture, one that bridges personal experience, shared imagination, and scientific inquiry. They remind us that mystery is not only a source of fear, but also a profound invitation to wonder. In the quiet hours, when the mind is calm and reflective, these encounters become more than stories. They are touchstones for contemplating the vastness of the universe and the boundaries of human perception. As listeners drift into sleep, they carry with them the echo of these experiences, a gentle reminder that curiosity, imagination, and a sense of awe remain vital parts of what it means to be human. As the night deepens and your body settles into the comforting rhythm of rest, it is natural for the mind to wander. The stories you have heard, of lights hovering silently over empty streets, of figures observed in shadowed corners, of sensations that defy explanation, linger quietly in the spaces between thought and imagination. Yet even in their strangeness, they are not meant to disturb or alarm. Instead, they invite reflection, curiosity, and a gentle exploration of the unknown. In this calm state, the boundaries between the ordinary and extraordinary soften, allowing a unique perspective to take hold, one in which the mysteries of the world are not threats but companions, subtle guides in the quiet journey toward understanding and sleep. Across history, humans have looked up at the night sky with a mixture of awe and fear. Ancient civilizations recorded luminous figures descending from the heavens, strange chariots traversing the sky, and beings whose form defied human description. Medieval chroniclers wrote of fiery wheels, glowing orbs, and unseen watchers in the darkness. Even without the vocabulary of modern science or the concept of extraterrestrials, these encounters were meticulously documented, suggesting a deep, persistent fascination with the unknown. Today, Reddit threads and personal testimonies continue this tradition, offering a digital repository of human curiosity and wonder. Each story, no matter how isolated it seems, is a link in a long continuum of shared experience, echoing the whispers of ancestors who also looked up at the sky and wondered. In reflecting on these 10 encounters, it becomes apparent that what binds them together is not simply the presence of lights or figures, but the intimate, deeply human response to the unfamiliar. Witnesses consistently describe feelings of awe, fear, and profound curiosity. They report an acute awareness of their environment, the stillness of the night, the rustle of leaves, the faint vibration of unseen movement. They recount sensations that cannot easily be measured: the pressure in a room, the subtle shift in air, the sensation of being observed without sight. These experiences are as much about perception as they are about phenomena, and they reveal something timeless about the human condition. Our minds are wired to notice the unusual, to register the extraordinary, and to preserve it in memory long after the moment has passed. Psychologists and neuroscientists who study anomalous experiences emphasize that the brain is remarkably sensitive to patterns, especially during the quiet hours when sensory input is reduced. In these conditions, small anomalies, an unexpected shadow, a sudden flicker of light, can become magnified, imbued with significance that stretches beyond ordinary perception. Yet even when accounting for these natural processes, there remains a subset of experiences that defy conventional explanation: precise, deliberate movements of objects in space, sensations of intelligent observation, and occurrences that seem to manipulate perception of time or reality. It is in this overlap between the explainable and the inexplicable that the encounters gain their emotional resonance, leaving a lasting impression on those who witness them. One of the most striking aspects of these experiences is their ability to shift the observer's sense of time. Witnesses frequently report that moments feel prolonged or condensed, that seconds stretch into minutes, or that hours pass in what seems like moments. In some cases, this temporal distortion accompanies intense visual or emotional phenomena: hovering lights, shadowed figures, or sensations of presence. Parapsychologists have long documented this phenomenon, noting that altered perception of time is a common feature in high-strangeness encounters. It is a reminder that these experiences do not operate entirely within the rules of everyday life. They occupy a liminal space where perception, consciousness, and the physical world intersect in ways that challenge conventional understanding. Alongside these perceptual anomalies, there is a recurring theme of intelligent interaction. Whether through the apparent tracking of witnesses, the deliberate movement of lights, or the subtle manipulation of the environment, many experiences suggest a level of awareness beyond simple physical explanation. In some cases, witnesses describe a sense of communication, not through words, but through presence, gesture, or the subtle shaping of reality itself. This intelligence is not overtly threatening. Rather, it is quiet, deliberate, and enigmatic. It creates a paradoxical blend of fascination and unease, drawing the observer's attention while preserving the mystery. The emotional effect is profound, a simultaneous acknowledgement of human vulnerability and a recognition of the vast possibilities that lie beyond ordinary experience. It is also important to consider the personal, psychological dimension of these encounters. Many witnesses report a sense of introspection and transformation following the events. Ordinary life, with its routines and certainties, suddenly feels more expansive. Questions arise. What is life beyond Earth? What is the nature of consciousness? Are we truly alone, or are there layers of reality that we cannot perceive? Even in the absence of definitive answers, the experience leaves a subtle imprint, reshaping the observer's relationship with the world. In this way, the encounters serve as catalysts for reflection, offering a doorway into thought, imagination, and curiosity that extends well beyond the immediate phenomena. As you listen to these stories, it may be comforting to remember that the unknown is not inherently dangerous. The phenomena recounted, whether extraterrestrial, interdimensional, psychological, or something entirely beyond current human understanding, rarely cause harm. Instead, they invite awareness, reflection, and wonder. The quiet, deliberate pace of these narratives mirrors the rhythm of night itself, unhurried, expansive, and filled with the gentle possibilities of what may lie beyond the ordinary. The unknown is less a threat and more a companion on the journey of consciousness, a reminder of the vast, intricate tapestry of the universe that surrounds and includes us. The night, with its vast, star-strewn canvas, has always been a space of contemplation. Ancient humans looked skyward and asked the same questions we ask today. What is out there? Who or what is watching? How do these moments shape our understanding of ourselves and the cosmos? Modern encounters, shared through digital forums and online communities, continue this dialogue, bridging centuries of human curiosity and providing both personal and collective context. Each story is a thread, connecting us to others who have felt the same awe, the same sense of mystery, the same subtle tremor of being in the presence of something inexplicable. As you lie in the quiet of your room, feeling the gentle rhythm of your breath, you can allow these stories to settle around you like a soft veil. The lights, figures, and presences you have imagined do not demand attention or action. They exist as part of a vast, unknowable landscape, one that invites gentle curiosity rather than fear. You are safely tucked within your own space, yet connected to a larger continuum of experience that stretches across time, culture, and geography. This dual sense of intimacy and expansiveness creates a profound calm, a feeling that the universe is vast, mysterious, and subtly alive, yet you are not alone in witnessing it. Finally, as your body sinks deeper into rest and your mind drifts toward sleep, consider that these encounters are part of a long human story, a narrative of curiosity, wonder, and the enduring search for understanding. The details of lights and shadows, of moments that stretch time and alter perception, are the surface expressions of something far deeper: humanity's encounter with the unknown. And in this calm reflection, you can allow the questions, the mysteries, and the sense of awe to linger softly, like starlight in the night sky, guiding you gently toward rest, dreams, and the peaceful surrender of consciousness, while carrying the quiet echo of the universe's mysteries into your sleep.